Asher Moses, thank you for your time. Tell us first, just how great can bill shock be when you take your mobile phone abroad?
Some of these charges that we're hearing about are just ridiculous. I was speaking to a guy yesterday from Sydney who went to Singapore on a work trip for a day, and he racked up a $9,000 bill. He said he was just, doing a bit of browsing, doing a bit of email, doing a bit of calls. So we're talking about astronomical costs that are even above the cost of the trip itself.
So how will the new provisions that we're now looking at prevent Australians from suffering shocks like $9,000 for a day in Singapore?
So there's a new government standard that basically means carriers will have to inform customers when they go overseas. They'll get a text saying this is how much it will cost to make a call, send a text, access the web. They'll also be told what you can do to switch off roaming altogether, and the carriers will have to provide usage alerts. So it's really just informing consumers, but the underlying charges is still going to remain the same. So the problem's still not really solved.
Tell us about those underlying charges when we take our mobile phones overseas, Asher. Are they legitimate and reasonable given the costs that our telcos, Telstra, Optus, Vodafone and others face, or are they unreasonable?
Well, the government said in their press release this morning that the roaming rates are up to 150 times more than what you would pay domestically for the same service. And just by looking at the sheer size of the bills, it's clear that it doesn't reflect the true cost of providing the service. And, there's been analysis by groups like KPMG that have actually crunched the numbers on this and proved it. So, and part of the problem is there's virtually no transparency over how these costs are derived. The carriers say that they're just passing on the charges from the international carriers, so it's not their fault, but it's just a cozy relationship between all the carriers. And because there's no global regulator that can say this is how much you have to charge, it's really hard to combat the problem.
So what's needed here is more competition. Is there some way of injecting more competition or a more competitive edge into overseas roaming, or are we just stuck with astronomical charges going forward?
Well, you'd hope that the telcos would be good corporate citizens and reduce their prices, but failing that, I think part of the solution is more transparency. We think the carriers could be forced to be more clear about how the charges are derived, and once consumers are informed, it reduces the market failure. For example, we would advise, instead of using roaming, just buy a local SIM at your destination so you can take advantage of the lower local rates. And also you could even buy a prepaid roaming SIM before you go. So you don't have to necessarily use roaming. And if you do use roaming, we would advise that wherever you can, try to get onto a Wi-Fi hotspot to access your web or email. And when you're making international calls, use tools like Skype or FaceTime so you're not using the carrier's network.
Stephen Conroy has been synonymous with communications in this country over a number of years now, since Labor took office. Now you guys in the communications area have a new minister, Anthony Albanese. He's not quite the tech head that you might expect, but is that a welcome change or a worrying change for the sector?
Oh, for us, it's a welcome change. We've been giving him a few days before we'd reach out and start lobbying him for what we want, changes that we want to happen. But we certainly welcome the change. It'll definitely be interesting to see the debate in the lead up to the election. And we're hoping to get a three-way debate between the Greens, Labor and the Liberals. So it'll be interesting to see whether we can get that up.
And tell me, are there any particular policy areas to watch Anthony Albanese in the coming weeks in the communication area and the Rudd government as opposed to the Gillard government? Any particular questions which will test its commitment to the sector, or no?
This is just my opinion, but I don't think we're going to see much hardcore policy development done in the lead up to the election. I think it's just going to be mainly about selling the NBN. We hope that we can get a clearer debate about the benefits of both proposals. We don't necessarily pick a side. We just essentially want consumers to get the best deal.
Asher Moses, we're grateful for your time.